Cassidy always wanted to help animals. It had been the reason why she used to volunteer at places like the shelter and the veterinary office. It had been the reason why she noticed something was wrong with a stray dog she encountered in a neighborhood park. At first, she thought nothing of it, but then the dog's pups started to make strange noises. Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. It was a sound so familiar, yet so out of place. Cassidy immediately realized these were no ordinary puppies. However, the mother dog was very protective over the pups. As Cassidy tried to come near the group of younglings, the dog's growls became louder as she stood by her group. A part of Cassidy found it endearing. The sweet thing wanted to protect them from her, even though she was partially starved already. Cassidy knew she had to help them. Those pups couldn't stay with the canine. The dog, though seemingly a proud mother, wasn't the right fit to raise these animals. Regardless, Cassidy couldn't help but wonder how these two groups had met each other and what had come over the female dog to take them in. She was hoping that a thorough examination would help figure that out. So Cassidy diligently called the local veterinary office. When they answered, they asked her many questions, some of which she hadn't even thought about, which only made her wonder more. Would her questions be answered? Would the younglings survive without their true mother? And most importantly, how did these two come to be together? Cassidy had only been doing her usual routine. She went to the neighborhood park almost every single day. She said it was often to clear her mind and get a nice breath of fresh air. Sometimes hash rains wouldn't stop her from venturing out there, but she would never have suspected to come across something like this. Due to the fact that she had been here so many times, she knew everyone and everything that came in these parks. The various neighborhood cats, dogs, and their owners, and even some strays. So when she saw something that she didn't immediately recognize, she was intrigued. She knew that she had to find out who it was. As she neared the dog, she didn't recognize it. The dog did look like a stray, though. The poor dog hadn't been fed well, and she felt the pity in her chest. Cassidy knew that she had to help. However, as she slowly neared the dog, it started to growl at her. It was baring its teeth at her, and that is when she spotted them. It was a girl. The dog had pups. With a quick head count, she noted 4 at the very least. But the dog looked malnourished. Maybe the dog had come here to look for help, to find some food, even if it wasn't necessarily in her original territory. Cassidy quickly ran off. She knew she had to get them some food. She had no idea that she had just misidentified the younglings. Cassidy knew exactly what to do. She quickly ran back to her home. She had a few cans of dog food in the pantry under the stairs. She didn't have any dogs of her own, but she would often help the strays in the area and with a dog with pups. She had to help them. As soon as she pocketed the can, she locked the door to her home again and ran back to the park, hoping the dogs were still there. They weren't exactly where she had left them when she returned, but they also hadn't made it far. She could see the various paw prints of the animals as she made her way over to them. Again, her efforts were met with growling as she neared the mother dog. She lowered herself to the stray's level and grabbed the can from her pocket. Her ears suddenly perked up. The dog seemed to recognize what the can could be as she stopped growling at Cassidy. Cassidy smiled at this. "Good girl," she cooed as she opened the can. The dog started sniffing the air as the smell emitted from the can. Cassidy placed it on the group before distancing herself from the can. It was then that she noticed the sound. When Cassidy walked back a bit to give the mother dog some space, she walked to the can. She cautiously sniffed its contents before eating. It was then that she heard it. Her pups were making sounds Cassidy hadn't heard puppies make before. The yipping from beneath the dog told her enough. That dog wasn't harboring her own pups. She recognized those sounds, but as she tried to take a closer look at them, the dog started to growl again, not letting her any closer. Though Cassidy thought it was sweet of the dog to be so protective, especially since those animals weren't her own pups, she also knew she had to help them. A dog couldn't care for those kinds of animals, especially when they get older. questions started to circulate in her head. How had these two groups even met? They must have traveled far, and it seemed like the dog was still giving off milk as the younglings sometimes seemed to drink from her. That begged the question, where were the real puppies of the dog? Had she adopted these creatures because her own had passed, or was it something else? Cassidy knew that she wouldn't find this out herself. Instead, she needed help. For one, the pups she had tagging along needed to be checked. Cassidy had no clue if the diet they were getting now would even suffice. However, she knew exactly who to call. She grabbed the phone and dialed the number by heart. She had volunteered at the veterinary before, especially when she was younger. Regardless, she often visited there on weekends, so she knew Dr. Green well. Yet, it wasn't Dr. Green who answered the phone. Instead, she heard a voice she didn't quite recognize. "Good afternoon, the veterinary office speaking. How can I be of service?" "Good afternoon, you're speaking with Cassidy Ryder. I need help with getting a couple of strays to your clinic," Cassidy stammered. She didn't know if this person on the other side of the line would understand their codes for certain animal issues. However, she knew that she had to try. "I'm sorry, you're speaking with the veterinary clinic, not the shelter. I'm afraid we only treat animals brought to us," the person said apologetically over the phone. Cassidy sighed. "Could you transfer me to Dr. Green and say that it is code B40? Cassidy said, as she knew that this wouldn't be a job for the shelter. The girl on the other side of the phone nearly made a startled sound. Cassidy could hear the muffled sound of two people talking before the girl returned to talk to her. "I spoke to Dr. Green just now. With a B40, can you please tell me your location so we can arrange a pickup?" Cassidy was glad for it, telling the girl the address. Cassidy paced the dewy grass of the park, her eyes darting between the stray dog huddled with its pups and the path leading in. The morning sun cast a soft glow on the scene, a stark contrast to the flurry of worries swirling in her mind. She clutched her phone tightly, anticipating Dr. Green's arrival. Each minute felt like an eternity, her heart thumping in sync with the ticking of her watch. Just as the park's clock chimed, a van marked Veterinary Services rolled in, stirring up a cloud of autumn leaves. Dr. Green stepped out, his eyes widening at the sight before him. "Well, I'll be," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. His team, equally taken aback, gathered around him, their gaze fixed on the stray dog and its unusual companions, an air of curiosity mixing with concern. The dog, sensing the new arrivals, positioned herself firmly in front of her pups. Her eyes, wary and alert, followed every move Dr. Green made. As he took a step forward, she let out a low, warning growl, her stance unyielding. Dr. Green paused, respecting her space, and exchanged a knowing look with his team. "We'll need to approach this with care," he whispered, aware of the delicate situation. Cassidy approached Dr. Green, her voice tinged with urgency. "Dr. Green, these aren't just any pups," she began, recounting her discovery. She described the peculiar sounds they made, the dog's protective nature, and her growing worry for their well-being. Dr. Green listened intently, nodding occasionally, his expression a blend of intrigue and professional concern. "Thank you, Cassidy. This is indeed unusual," he replied thoughtfully. Gathering his team in a huddle, Dr. Green outlined their approach. "Let's start with a visual assessment from a distance. We need to gain the dog's trust first," he instructed, his tone measured. The team nodded in agreement, each member aware of the challenge ahead. Cassidy watched from a distance, her heart hopeful yet anxious, as Dr. Green and his team prepared to unravel the mystery of the stray and her pups. With a blend of caution and curiosity, Dr. Green and his team commenced their examination. From a respectful distance, they observed the dog's lean frame and dull coat, clear signs of malnutrition. Her eyes, though tired, remained vigilant, guarding her pups with a mother's fierce resolve. The team exchanged concerned glances, noting her protective nature as a key factor in their approach. The pups, seemingly oblivious to the humans, played under their mother's watchful eye. As the team observed, they couldn't help but notice the pups' peculiar features. Their fur patterns, ear shapes, and the way they moved sparked a debate among the team. "Could they be a rare breed, or perhaps a hybrid?" whispered one of the assistants as they scribbled notes, intrigued by the possibilities. Dr. Green signaled his team to proceed with utmost gentleness. They approached slowly, offering treats and soft words, trying to ease the mother's apprehension. Her growls subsided gradually, replaced by cautious curiosity. The team managed to offer a quick, non-invasive check of the pups, careful not to startle them or their protective parent. Each move was calculated, aiming to maintain the fragile trust they were building. Back at a safe distance, Dr. Green pondered over the pups' features. They display characteristics not typical of domestic breeds. The possibility of them being part dog, part wolf can't be ruled out, he mused aloud. The idea seemed to resonate with the team, sparking a flurry of discussions about genetics, behavior, and the implications of such a hybridization. After a thorough yet careful assessment, Dr. Green made a decisive call. "We need a more detailed examination to understand what we're dealing with," he announced. The team agreed, understanding the necessity of taking the animals to the clinic. Cassidy, witnessing the decision, felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The mystery of the dog and her pups was about to delve deeper. Dr. Green's team methodically prepared for the transport. They brought a large, comfortable crate, lining it with soft blankets. The dog, still wary but calmer now, was gently coaxed inside with her pups. The team worked with synchronized care, ensuring the animals felt as secure as possible. Cassidy watched, impressed by their professionalism and the evident respect they showed towards the stray and her unexpected family. As the van doors opened, Cassidy stepped forward. "I'd like to come along," she said, her voice firm with resolve. Dr. Green nodded, understanding her attachment and the helpful role she could play. Cassidy's knowledge of the dog's behavior and her calming presence could be invaluable during the journey. She climbed into the van, determined to see this through for the sake of the animals. The drive to the clinic was a journey filled with care and concern. The team kept a close eye on the dog and her pups, monitoring their stress levels. Cassidy sat near the crate, whispering soothing words. Every bump and turn was navigated with extra caution, reflecting the team's commitment to the safety and comfort of their special passengers. Upon arriving at the clinic, the atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and professional readiness. The team efficiently moved the crate inside, where a room had been prepared for the dog and her pups. They were gently released into the space, which was filled with comforts and a quiet ambiance, designed to ease their transition into this new, unfamiliar environment. Throughout the journey and the careful settling in at the clinic, Cassidy's connection to the dog and pups only deepened. Watching them adapt to their new surroundings, she felt a mix of pride and concern. Her heart ached with a sense of responsibility and an inexplicable bond that had formed in these unexpected circumstances. She knew then that she was irrevocably connected to their fate. In the clinic's examination room, Dr. Green and his team commenced a thorough checkup. They noted the pups' distinct fur patterns and the unusual shape of their paws. Even their playful interactions seemed atypical. The mother dog watched cautiously, her eyes never leaving her pups. Every observation was meticulously recorded, adding pieces to the growing puzzle of these unique animals. From behind the observation glass, Cassidy watched intently. She noticed the gentle way the team handled the pups, yet her focus was on their behavior. The way they moved, their reactions to certain stimuli, and their interactions with each other were fascinating. She couldn't help but feel there was something extraordinary about them, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. During a brief team huddle, Dr. Green discussed their observations. "Their play behavior, it's not typical canine interaction," he remarked. Another team member chimed in. "And the vocalizations, they're unusual for puppies." The room buzzed with theories and questions as the team tried to make sense of these behaviors. The pups continued to frolic, unaware of the intrigue they were causing. The examination revealed more curiosities. The pups' dental structure differed slightly from typical canines, and their limb proportions were irregular. These physical traits, they don't align with common dog breeds, one of the veterinarians noted, examining the X-ray images. Dr. Green nodded in agreement, his brow furrowed in concentration. The physical anomalies only added to the growing mystery surrounding these animals. Despite the detailed examination, the true nature of the pups remained a riddle. Dr. Green looked over the compiled data, a mix of fascination and frustration in his eyes. Cassidy, still observing, felt the weight of unanswered questions. The day had brought more puzzles than solutions, deepening the mystery of the stray dog and her peculiar pups. Cassidy spent hours poring over dog breed encyclopedias and online databases. She compared images and descriptions with her memories of the pups. Each page turned increased her determination, but also her confusion. The more she read, the more she realized that none of the breeds matched perfectly. The unique traits of the pups eluded every category, deepening the enigma surrounding their true identity. With a notebook in hand, Cassidy returned to the park where she first found the dog and pups. She hoped to find some clue, perhaps overlooked before, that could shed light on their origins. She spoke with regular park-goers, inquiring about any unusual sightings or stray dogs. But the park, with its familiar paths and old trees, offered no new revelations or answers. Despite her thorough search and inquiries, Cassidy's efforts to unravel the mystery bore no fruit. The park regulars hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary, and there were no signs or traces that provided any leads. The dog's past, along with the peculiar traits of the pups, remained shrouded in uncertainty, much to Cassidy's disappointment. Back at home, Cassidy's frustration mounted. The pieces of the puzzle refused to fit together, yet her curiosity only grew stronger. She replayed every interaction, every observation she had made about the pups and their mother. The unanswered questions nagged at her, fueling a restless desire to uncover the truth, no matter how elusive it might be. As night fell, Cassidy sat, surrounded by her notes and books, feeling as though she was chasing shadows. The mystery of the pups' breed, their peculiar characteristics, and the stray dog's sudden appearance in the park hung in her mind like an unsolvable riddle. The path to understanding these unique animals seemed to twist and turn, always just out of reach. Each day, Cassidy made her way to the clinic, her visits becoming a regular part of her routine. The staff greeted her warmly, now familiar with her presence. As she walked through the doors, her eyes would immediately seek out the dog and her pups. With every visit, her bond with them strengthened, her commitment to their well-being growing deeper. Cassidy spent hours observing the dog and her pups, fascinated by their interactions. She noticed how the mother dog communicated with her pups, her body language and soft sounds guiding them. The pups, in turn, responded with eagerness, their playful antics a source of constant wonder. Cassidy took notes, captivated by their world, so different yet so full of love and life. Over time, the stray dog's demeanor towards Cassidy changed. Where there was once wariness, trust began to bloom. The dog would approach Cassidy, nuzzling her hand or resting her head on Cassidy's knee. It was a silent acknowledgement, a sign of acceptance and gratitude that touched Cassidy deeply. In those moments, their connection transcended the barriers between humans and animal. Cassidy became an active participant in caring for the dog and her pups. She helped with their feedings, gently offering food and water. She learned to read their needs, responding with a soft touch or a soothing voice. These caring moments were not just acts of kindness. They were the building blocks of a profound relationship, woven from countless shared experiences and mutual trust. As the days passed, Cassidy realized the depth of her emotional connection with the dog and her pups. She found joy in their progress, worry in their setbacks, and a sense of purpose in being part of their lives. They were no longer just animals she had found in the park. They had become a significant part of her world, their well-being intertwined with her own heart. One morning, Cassidy arrived at the clinic to find one of the pups lying listlessly in its bed. The staff, already attending to it, shared their concerns. The pup had a fever and showed signs of distress. Cassidy's heart sank at the sight. The playful, energetic pup she knew was now vulnerable and weak, its small body fighting an unseen battle. Determined to stay by the pup's side, Cassidy decided to spend the night at the clinic. She sat by the pup, softly stroking its fur, whispering words of comfort. The clinic's quiet, punctuated by the soft beeps of monitors, enveloped them. Cassidy's presence was a vigilant and caring one, a silent vow to not let the pup face its struggle alone. That night, a new layer of connection formed between Cassidy and the animals. Her unwavering attention through the pup's illness forged a deeper bond, not just with the sick pup, but with its siblings and mother. The dog seemed to understand Cassidy's dedication, her grateful eyes speaking volumes. In those long hours, their bond, fueled by care and compassion, grew stronger. Amidst her concern, Cassidy began to notice more peculiarities in the pup's behavior and sounds. Their vocalizations had unusual pitches and patterns, different from typical puppy noises. Their movements, too, seemed distinctive, not quite aligning with regular canine behavior. These observations, made in the quiet of the clinic, added new layers to the mystery surrounding the pups. The unusual traits of the pups, more evident in the quiet observation of the night, reignited Cassidy's curiosity about their true nature. The more she watched and listened, the more questions surfaced. Were these characteristics normal variations or signs of something more? The mystery of their origin, once pushed to the background, now came to the forefront of Cassidy's thoughts once again. During a routine visit to the clinic, a wildlife expert, passing through, paused by the pup's enclosure. "They remind me of wild canines I've seen," he commented casually to Cassidy. His words, unintended to be significant, struck a chord in her. The comparison to wild canines sparked a flurry of new thoughts and possibilities in Cassidy's mind, reshaping her perspective. Cassidy found herself replaying the expert's remark in her mind. She started to doubt her initial assumptions about the pups. Could they be something other than domestic dogs? The notion unsettled her, challenging her understanding of the situation. The similarities the expert mentioned, were they just coincidences or indicative of a deeper truth about the pup's true nature? The wildlife expert's observation plunged Cassidy into a deeper quandary. The more she thought about it, the more the pieces seemed to fit, yet it also complicated things. The implications of caring for wild canines were vastly different from domestic ones. Cassidy's mind raced with questions and concerns about what this could mean for the pups and their future. Driven by a mix of concern and curiosity, Cassidy sought out the wildlife expert for a more in-depth discussion. She shared her observations and the unusual behaviours she'd noted. The expert listened attentively, asking probing questions and offering insights based on his experience with wild canines. Each piece of information he provided opened Cassidy's eyes to new aspects of the pups' behaviours and needs. The conversation with the wildlife expert offered Cassidy a new lens through which to view the pups. His insights shed light on many of the peculiarities she had observed. The possibility that they might not be domestic dogs introduced a host of new challenges, but also a sense of awe at the unique connection she had formed with these mysterious creatures. Cassidy's journey of discovery had taken an unexpected turn. After much deliberation, Dr. Green decided that a DNA test was the only way to uncover the truth about the pups. Cassidy watched as the team carefully collected samples. The process was precise and respectful, with the welfare of the animals at the forefront. There was a palpable sense of anticipation as the samples were sent off for analysis, the results of which would change everything. The day the DNA test results arrived was a defining moment. Dr. Green called Cassidy into his office, his expression serious. "They're not domestic dog pups," he began. "They're coyote cubs." The revelation was stunning. Cassidy felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. The mysterious traits, the unusual behaviours. It all made sense now, but the truth was overwhelming. Cassidy struggled with a torrent of emotions. There was a sense of betrayal, as though nature itself had deceived her. Yet, concern for the cubs' well-being remained paramount. She cared deeply for them, regardless of their species. The complexity of the situation weighed heavily on her as she grappled with the reality of nurturing wild animals unknowingly. Dr. Green explained the complications of the situation to Cassidy. Raising coyote cubs in a domestic setting poses significant challenges, he said. Their needs are different, and there's the question of their eventual release into the wild. The conversation highlighted the complexities of the situation, emphasizing the importance of specialized care and the ethical considerations involved in dealing with wild animals. Cassidy and Dr. Green faced the difficult reality that the cubs needed more than what they could provide. They needed to be in an environment suited to their wild nature, a place where they could develop the skills to survive in their natural habitat. The decision to transfer them to a wildlife rehabilitation center was hard but necessary, made with the cubs' best interests at heart. After much discussion, the decision was made. The cubs would be transferred to a wildlife rehabilitation center. Dr. Green, Cassidy, and the team agreed that it was the best chance for the cubs to live as they were meant to, in the wild. Cassidy understood the importance of this decision, recognizing that true care sometimes meant letting go for the greater good. The day of departure arrived too soon. Cassidy knelt by the cubs, her eyes brimming with tears. She whispered her goodbyes, each word laden with emotion. Though her heart ached, she knew this farewell was a gesture of love and hope for their future. As she looked into their eyes, she felt a profound connection, one that would stay with her long after they were gone. Amidst the bittersweet farewells, Cassidy made a heartfelt decision. She chose to adopt the stray dog who had brought her to this unexpected journey. Their bond, forged through care and shared experiences, was undeniable. The dog, once a wary stray, now wagged her tail with a sense of belonging. Together, they faced a new beginning, a future filled with promise and companionship. The cubs, now in the care of experienced handlers, were carefully loaded into a vehicle equipped for their safe transport. Cassidy watched as the van drove away, her heart heavy yet filled with hope. She knew they were heading to a place where they would learn to thrive in their natural habitat, a necessary step in their journey back to the wild. As Cassidy walked away with the dog by her side, she reflected on the extraordinary adventure they had shared. From a chance encounter in the park to the surprising revelation of the cub's true nature, it had been a journey of discovery, care, and deep emotional connections. Now, with the dog as her companion, Cassidy looked forward to new chapters, her life enriched by the unexpected bonds she had formed.